Welcome to Come to Work With Me. I am Audrey and I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and what I'm standing on today, which is the Tungarang clans. I also would like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on the various lands that we're all meeting on today, because of course we are able to do this over Facebook and in classrooms, and of course where Kane is, so we'd like to pay our respects to them and also pay our respects to any Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander friends that are joining us today. I am joined by the fantastic Kane. Hello, lovely to meet you.
Thanks, Audrey.
Please tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So, yeah, my name's Kane Williams. I work for a company called Stantec. We've recently been bought out. I'd worked for GTA Consultants, who are a traffic and transport engineering company.
Fantastic. And I guess I've done a little bit of research. I have watched your video on the LEN page, of course. Tell us a bit about Vet Champions.
Sure. So I was asked to participate in the program. It was only recently, a couple of months ago. So this is my first speaking engagement since being part of the program, which is super exciting. But Vet Champions is just it's a way to communicate or share different career pathways and different opportunities that exist once you finish school. Certainly from my experience, I had always envisaged that I wanted to complete a bachelor or go to university. I didn't end up doing that. I took another pathway. I ended up doing 2 TAFE courses or advanced diplomas. And I think from my perspective, I'm really excited to be able to share that because those opportunities weren't immediately evident to me when I was in high school, which seems like a little while ago now.
No, absolutely. I remember when I was in year 12, it kind of gets to a point where it's like, okay, where do I go from here? Do I pick certain subjects to go into this course? Do I try and put all that pressure on myself to get an ATAR that gets me into a certain course? Or do I go down the vet line, which is a fantastic avenue for students like me, and I guess like yourself, who wanted to go down that avenue. So tell us a bit about when you were in high school, what was that point where you had to go down that vet avenue and you chose to go down that?
Yeah, sure. So I think it got to a point where, at some point probably year 11, year 12, where you need to just choose the subjects that you want to do and which form somewhat of a foundation for you, or potentially a foundation for the career that you're going to pursue after high school. But I think the important message I want to convey is that at that point in time, I was really unclear about what I wanted to do. And I guess in hindsight, what I did do was choose subjects that were relevant or spoke to some of my strengths in school. Whilst I wasn't overly academic or wasn't passionate about high school or studies thereafter, what I did do was chose things that interested me. Not necessarily the easiest subjects, but subjects that were relevant to what my strengths were in high school. I did, which were a little bit of everything. But then once I guess at some point in year 12, you need to, make your selections about what you want to do after year 12. And that the way I approached it was to choose, I guess, courses of varying degrees of like the relevance in terms of what subjects were, but also varying degrees of entry pathways. So whether it be you get a rough idea of what the score was to enter various courses. And give yourself a range of opportunities. Don't just focus on one area. There's lots of different universities, lots of different TAFEs or other educational opportunities outside of high school.
Absolutely. And choosing the TAFE courses that you've done and completed successfully, where are you at and what do you do now on a day-to-day basis?
Sorry, just cut out there for a moment. Could you just repeat that?
So on a day-to-day basis now, with those vet courses and everything under your belt, what does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, sure. So I started my first job outside of completing the 2 courses that I did was a CAD operator, so essentially a designer, traffic and transport designer. So that involved preparing drawings on the computer-based drawings. But also, I mean, it was a real mix of tasks. It was, you know, be out on site, or you'd be working in teams with various people within the office, or different consultants, or the road authority, be it Vic Roads or council, things like that. So it's really dynamic sort of a workplace. I always had in my head, I didn't want to sit behind a desk and be in a computer or inside. It's kind of ended up that way in some ways, but what I guess is what I love about what I do is the variety and the people. So yeah, the variety of projects. I mean, it was an industry I really didn't have much of an understanding of until I was in it. The content of the course that I completed was great, but it was really wide ranging. So the opportunities that it afforded me were really broad and vast. I ended up getting the job that I did in traffic and transport industry. That wasn't something I was necessarily passionate about. It was more opportunistic. I really wanted to work rather than continue to study. So, and then I've been at the company for 15 to 16 years now. So it's gone really quickly. But I think it just talks to the variety and how dynamic the office is. So day to day, I mean, you know, I work within a team, I lead a team. So we're sort of a group of 5 to 6 people, and we're in a broader team of about 25. Our office is a lot bigger than that, but that's just the immediate teams. So it might be, well, at the moment, it's talking to people on Skype or Zoom, or working from home, yeah, as you would all appreciate. But it's working on, you know, up to, you know, 5 to 10 different projects a day sometimes, or it could be one. It depends. Like there's some projects are really high turnover and quick to be delivered. Others are really significant, like we're working on some really major projects, the level crossing removal program, or projects at Melbourne Park or the Arts Centre, quite significant, you know, sites that hopefully the audience is all aware of. But yeah, it's a fast moving job. It's exciting. It's never boring.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you could go back to when you were in high school and you were making those choices, as you mentioned, would you change anything?
Probably apply myself a little more to complete.
We all look back on our high school journey. It's like, oh, I could have, you know, done this a bit better. I could have done that. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think, and I don't know what I'd change, but I would say that whilst it's critical to, you know, devote yourself to whatever you're doing and get to the end of your studies, whatever that looks like. But it's not so important that you just lump so much pressure on yourself to it's not all in. It's not, you know, if you don't get what you want or what you think is your first preference or whatever it might be, it's not the end of the world. I think that the opportunities that exist outside of high school, you have no idea what they are right now. I can assure you. There's industries and jobs and careers that you have no idea exist that you're likely to end up in or get an understanding of after high school. So I think it's really important not to be burdened by those pressures whilst you're in high school. Do the best you can to give yourself the best opportunities, but there's so many pathways out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And within those pathways, do you think that young people, especially nowadays, are putting that pressure on themselves? Do you think that sometimes they stick away from that vet course because there's a bit of stereotype behind it, instead of, you know, you can't do this role because you have to have the uni degree, where realistically, if you say do 2 TAFE courses, you can just get there? Do you think they stay away from that a bit?
Yeah, I think so. That was certainly my perspective when I was completing my course. So the course I chose actually gave me the opportunity to continue on and complete a bachelor, and that was the reason I chose it. But once I got to the end and got the certificates, the TAFE certificates, I decided to work and not pursue the bachelor. Once I ended up being able to work part-time and finish my course part-time, so I was in the industry and got a better understanding. As soon as I started working, my understanding of work opportunities and work life just completely changed. I always thought I'd be restricted or limited in the engineering field without having a bachelor of engineering. That hasn't been the case at all. I haven't had any restrictions or limits on my career whatsoever.
That's wonderful to hear. I think you don't really hear that much being in high, you know, when you're in high school and when you picking those journeys, I guess you don't really hear the difference. It's always the push for uni. So it's fantastic to hear that from you. Now, I'm just seeing if we've got any questions that have popped up. No, not yet. Fantastic. I love it. So I guess I'll keep asking questions.
Go for it.
Yeah, beautiful. So when you did do the TAFE courses, did you go into any School West apprenticeships, or did you do an apprenticeship? Was it a long course? Was it only a few years?
No, it was the course I did was run through RMIT, but as a TAFE course, and I understand they've got a broader TAFE program. It was a 2-year course. Like I said, it was 2 certificates, so it was completed over 2 years full time. And then there was an opportunity to continue and complete a bachelor, but I stopped. I did always have in the back of my mind I would do that, but it was just I didn't find I wasn't an overly academic person. I was okay at school, but it wasn't of interest to me. I wanted to work. I wanted to earn money and be independent and get into the workforce as soon as I could. And this gave me the quickest pathway to still have a qualification, but yeah, it gave me an opportunity to get a job in an industry that I thought I would enjoy.
Fantastic. Now we do have a few questions that have popped through. So what kind of engineering do you do, and what made you choose this?
It's traffic and transport engineering. So I wasn't even aware that this was a thing prior to me, completing my studies or working in the industry. But effectively, any element of a road network, whether it be local or state, is informed by traffic and transport engineering. So that's, modelling is undertaken to confirm how many lanes, how long a turn lane is, what an intersection looks like. That's effectively the nuts and bolts of it. That's both private sector and public sector. So what I mean when I say that is projects either for local government like council, or state government, being big roads, or federal government for that matter, or the private sector, so private developers. So, things like could be hospitals or retail, shopping centres, or housing like residential apartments. Anything and everything has a traffic and transport element to it. Even if you don't think it does, it would, I guarantee it.
Okay.
And it's a bit of a funny story, I guess. The only reason I chose this industry was there was an advert on the wall advertising a position at my TAFE for a design draftsperson. I called that number. It was my first interview. I ended up getting the job. I think I got a phone call back that same afternoon after my interview, and that's all she wrote. I haven't moved on or left. I've been at the same company, which I feel really fortunate about for 15, 16 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, how difficult is it to switch from one engineering field to another if a student were to change their mind in the middle of their studies after high school?
I think it's a really broad industry in terms of the different engineering fields. There's lots. There's traffic and transport, structural, mechanical, civil, and then lots of subsets of those, like fire engineering, water engineering, waste engineering. There's so many elements. I guess it would depend on the course that you're doing and the one that you want to do. It's probably something you need to talk to, or have a look into the course, and because I think there are general subjects across all engineering fields, but then there's more specific subjects that relate to each of the various disciplines within that.
Yeah, fantastic. We have another question, which is, how important is real experience in a workplace when you go and start work?
I found it invaluable, and that's probably what made me choose to sort of stop studying and just carry on with my career. I think that what I learnt within the courses that I completed was quite general and really interesting, and I really enjoyed it. But what I learnt on the job was very job specific and relevant to my employer. So the skills are slightly different, whilst the foundation for all the skills is generally the same. Hard work and the maths associated, or the computer skills, or whatever it might be. They're all generally the same. I found that the skills I needed to complete my job were learnt within my job. So the completing the course or having the certificates gave me the opportunity to get the job. But once I got the job, that was where I learnt the core skills. And there's a lot of there's sort of, now we sort of break skills down into two areas, I think, is technical skills, so hard skills. So, you know, being able to understand the theory or being able to do the work. And there's lots of soft skills like having conversations or communication or project management or, you know, the management of the finances associated with the project, those sorts of things. So you learn all that stuff, I think, within your workplace. I don't think anyone expects everyone to know everything on day one. Definitely not. That's something that is developed over time. And I think I'm still learning to this day.
Fantastic. We're always learning. It's the best. I love it. Do you think that what you learnt during your vet course did set you up for your future learnings at TAFE and uni, and of course at work? And this will be our last question, Kane, just letting you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely set me up for having a broader understanding of what was out there in the great big wide world. I wasn't like, you know, you're pretty naive, I think, when you are, like, in hindsight, you realise how naive or how little you do know. I think the opportunities that exist are so broad and so great that once you just got to, I think, you just got to keep progressing and choose something that is that you enjoy or important to you, or if you're lucky enough to have a passion at that age. I didn't have a passion, but you develop these things as you grow older. If you're lucky enough to have a passion, you should go down that path. But then the careers or opportunities that exist within that industry will be greater than you understand at this point in time. So I think there's always something for everyone, is my experience.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, Kane, for jumping on and having a chat with me and all the schools and students and everyone who tuned in. Thank you. We love hearing about your story. And of course, you can jump onto the Facebook page and read up and watch more videos about Kane and the amazing work he's doing.
Thanks very much, Audrey. And thanks to all the listeners and all those that tuned in.
We will definitely confirm a time and day on the Facebook page, so keep an eye out for that. But I hope everyone has a great day, and we will be back here next week.